Hi America, hello world. My name is Adrian Lee and I'm your host today for a very, very special show of Now You Know. You're probably wondering where Samantha Hedden is, but I've decided that we're going to do a little bit something different this time around. They've got a series coming up, it's series 4. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to perhaps put together almost like a DVD extra, an opportunity for an interview with Andy Watson and Samantha Hedden. We'll discuss the upcoming series, perhaps some of their most favourite interviews over the last few years, and get to know them a little bit better as well, because when you host a show you very rarely get to answer questions, so I'm here to fulfil that today. So I want to welcome onto our COVID-friendly set today Samantha Hedden. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me on your show. I also wish to introduce Andy Watson. So thank you for joining us today over there in the corner.
Thanks for having us, Adrian. This is great.
You very rarely get a chance to be in front of the camera, so here's your chance to shine, hopefully, and I'll ask you some questions about how the show's gone and what you've got planned for Series 4, so I'm very excited about that. I think the first thing I'd like to do is just to ask you what your roles are on the show Now You Know. So I'll start with ladies first. Sam, what do you see your role as? What do you do on that particular show?
I am the hostess with the mostest. I talk to the people, I come up with the questions to ask, I do the research for each person that gets interviewed. That's my main role for it.
So that would be almost like a showrunner, wouldn't it? Would that be correct?
Parts of it. I'd say Andy's more the showrunner than I am, but there's definitely aspects to it, yes.
And Andy, how would you describe your position on the show? What roles do you fulfill?
Well, Sam does the interviews. Mostly we've been doing them in Zoom, so she's just been sending me these files that are like people next to each other and doing a discussion, and then I edit it together so that it's not just two people in two little boxes explaining a story. But before COVID, we had a great time going out and interviewing people. She would say, I've got an interview with this guy, he's a House representative. You want to go? It's like, yeah, let's go. Boom, we're in the state capitol. We're talking to this guy. We've got other legislators walking by us. I mean, so you've opened up a lot of other people's lives that otherwise I wouldn't have even gotten close to, probably. So I appreciate that. She has an incredible group of people that she can rely on to provide these interviews. They want to be interviewed, they have things to say, and she knows them just through the many worlds that she travels, and she travels a lot of worlds.
So what you're saying is that you're an enabler for him to have adventures and leave his basement. Is that how this relationship works?
Apparently. I was unaware of such wonders, but he doesn't give himself enough credit. He knows a lot of people himself that we've got who interview quite a few of them, and it's been pretty amazing.
I think we'll touch upon your pasts and your histories and where you come from in terms of your experiences, but I think I'd like to start by asking how you met, because obviously you may have different stories and different perspectives, but how did you meet Andy? How did that come about?
I was actually helping out a mutual friend of ours, Craig Muckler, and one day they were like, why don't you come check out our show at MCN 6 that they're building? And I was like, okay, that would be fun. And I show up, and lo and behold, there's this dude there. I call him Dude.
I think that's a good description. I think you should stick with that.
I was a dude in the day, yes.
He's still a dude now.
How long ago was this?
Oh man, that year and a half, or maybe going on 2 years.
Well, okay, so Crypticon was 2019 when we went to Crypticon, so it was the summer of that. And so in LA, I was in LA in May of 2019, so it was just before that. Because there was a question as to whether or not you were going to come to
LA to help with that.
So I'll bet it was March. I would say March of 2019.
Yeah, so going on 2 years now.
Yeah.
Well, yep.
Do you have a different version to that story, or is that how you remember things?
No. She wanted to come on as associate producer or a line director.
Yeah.
And so it was just it was an idea that was in its fruition. So it was like, yes, the more people involved with ideas, it's like, let's go with it. The cool thing is, it was all like Muckler and I are of the same age range, and I thought having somebody with a younger perspective by almost half that might be useful to reach out to a new audience. So yeah, we brought her on, and she just loved what we had done as a prototype, and so that was very fun. So that was when I said, yeah, I can partner with this person. I didn't know that shortly after that she would be my only partner in the new project, in the new idea. So when we went to Crypticon to go get interviews for this other project, that's when she and I said, we could just do this ourselves. And that's really how it came about, because as you know, since you were our first guest, we were just in a hotel room, and that's actually the first time I got to see you interview anybody. And that was the first time she got to see me jump around the room with the couple of cameras that we had, and just captured it perfectly. It was a great collaboration, and we had a lot of fun too. So that was the main thing.
I think you've tricked me somewhat, because when I first arrived at Crypticon, I think you knew me through my radio show. So in the lobby, you came and said hello, and then you said, "Did you want? Can I watch? You know, can I see you set up?" And then as you were setting up, you said, well, why don't we interview you first? Because it wasn't planned that way. It just evolved. And I think you had a free hour before you went on to some of the bigger names like Jesse Ventura, I believe, and a few others. But I had the impression you'd been doing this for years. And now you just tell me that was the first time you did anything. So I feel like I've been tricked a little bit. I feel I've been...
Together, that was the first time we'd done anything. I've worked with video since like 1985. I've shot bands, and I've done interviews, and I've done documentaries. I've done all kinds of stuff. So technically, that wasn't a problem for me. What was interesting for the first time was to just take over a room and make it a studio, and then know that we just had it. We were only limited by how many people we could get to come to the room to do an interview. So we really just went out in the middle of this convention, and went, hey, would you like to do an interview? Could you come here tomorrow at 2 or at 3 or whatever? And that's how we got a lot of good interviews. But it was fun too, because I knew that the collaboration between me and Sam was going to go on beyond Crypticon. Crypticon was one thing, but then it was like, yeah, if we do this ourselves and we just kind of do the interviews that we want to do and put them on the web when we want to do them, then there's nothing holding us back. We don't have to wait to get product out there.
I do remember that being a unique day, because you very kindly allowed me to stay and watch you interview the other people. And of course, you've got guests, film stars, politicians coming in and out of this hotel room all day long. And you allowed me to stand at the back of the room and watch all this take place. But there was some crazy things that happened that day. There was some really odd and funny moments as well. I mean, do any of those stick in your mind from that first time?
Oh, I don't know. My favorite was when you opened the door to Andy Robinson and told him to leave, and you didn't know who it was until I was like, who was that? And I was like, no, don't do that.
Well, I think we need to preface this a little bit, but you've got, as you said, there was actors, politicians coming in almost by an hourly basis, and if they overran, anyone who's interviewed Jesse Ventura will know you're not going to do an hour, right? It's going to run. And so actors were coming in and out, and obviously you want to keep the noise to a minimum, you know, with the door opening and shutting. So a guy was banging on the door, and I was the only person there, and you two were obviously involved in the process of filming. So I rushed to the door and said to the old man, you need to leave, you know, you shouldn't be making a noise. But it turned out to be the actor from Hellraiser. He was Pinhead, wasn't he? So I do remember that day for telling Pinhead from Hellraiser to go forth down the corridor. He looked very unhappy and very sad.
And for me, it was the assassin from Dirty Harry from '71. I mean, the first guy who scared the hell out of me, you know, on a TV screen. So yeah, it was really something. We had a good day that day.
Let's talk about your background. You touched upon this and what you bring to the show, and I don't think people understand how much experience and the things you've done before. So here's your chance, and I'll start with Andy because you brought this up and you've led into my next question. Talk to me about your past. Talk to me about what you've done, shows you've worked on, things that have led you to this moment.
in the mid 80s, I was probably pretty hyped up to get a video camera. And so I learned everything that it would do. And of course, at the time, they were like these huge things that sat on your shoulder. So I've just loved the technology as it's changed, and the cameras have gotten smaller and gotten better, and things have been in stereo and all of that stuff. So I literally used to go from taking a couple of videotapes to another VCR in order to edit scenes for various things. But so shooting weddings or shooting a band or shooting something like that usually involved a truckload full of stuff, a carload full of stuff. Now you can carry the whole thing on your back.
Introduce the new Saturday night.
You're watching the Sounds of Kindness concert series. Please support World Kindness and remember the artists who donated their time and talent to the cause. Thank you.
So that allows you to do kamikaze journalism, which is where you just flip out a camera and you go and you start interviewing somebody, or you can chase them down or whatever. But this is the first time that we've actually been able to structure a title and have things out there. One project that I'm very proud of was for Authenticity Consulting, and it was about action learning. And a friend of mine who runs Authenticity Consulting came to me, and we did a 25-part series that's on the web now, and it's the most watched web series about action learning in the world. So you get that sense of, so the things that I create in my basement can actually go worldwide. And then you start to think about other ideas, and then you think about your own interests and what you want to do. Also, I was able to team up with Paul Metza, who wanted to do a TV show on MCN6, a cable network thing. And I was given, that went from yes, I'll help out, to oh, I'm in charge now, which was really cool. So I've met a lot of really cool people through him. He's somebody who's been in the music business since '78. Alejandro Escovedo. I've met members of Los Lobos. I've interviewed people who worked on the Bob Dylan Blood on the Tracks album. I've gotten to the point where, and this is no lie, because I think, Adrian, you get to this point too. You're no longer starstruck by people when you meet them. And if they're starstruck on themselves, you kind of go, what a wanker, right? Right? I'm not starstruck anymore. I meet somebody and I go, wow, you did a really good job on this album, or I really appreciate your work, or I really appreciate the movies that you were in. So by being able to do the Wall of Power TV with Paul Metza, then I met Craig Muckler, who then had the idea for Hollywood Showcase, who then had the idea of going out to Hollywood and interviewing some of his friends. And we did 23 interviews in about 12 hours. And one of those interviews was Eric Roberts, which was really, really cool, the actor Eric Roberts. And there were some other people there that had been in Hollywood forever. And again, I just became less starstruck. Chris Mulkey is somebody that I had watched a lot on TV with the Twin Peaks and also in the movies and everything. And to meet him and to hang out with him, have a beer with him, and then do an interview with him was just really an eye-opener as well. So.
You've done a lot of work with music. I'm right in thinking that you had a radio show at one point and you have a fascination and a love of all things musical. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was kind of the easier way to go. So in college, the guy who ran the TV program there said, well, you can either be in TV or you can be in radio. And I thought, well, I've got to make a decision then, so I'll just be in radio. And loved it up there. KVSC, St. Cloud, it was a great college station. Learned a lot. Had some directorships and some other stuff. But it wasn't, it was just recently I spent 3 years doing something for Super Radio, where I was able to do the whole radio thing in my basement, which was great. And I was able to create something we called vintage rock, which was the very best of the 60s and 70s, not the 60s and 70s, but that's been overplayed. So rather than the top 40, we went for the bottom 60. And we went for album cuts that nobody ever heard of and stuff like that. And you and I have talked at length about that, because a lot of that UK exposure, a lot of the stuff about the British invasion and all that, your perspective on what that was like was so much different than what my perspective was like. And who we thought were big maybe weren't that big. Just the Americans said that these guys are really big over there. And it's like, so that was really neat.
From a time when music was stored in crates instead of the cloud.
I love records.
This is Vintage Rock USA.
And actually something special coming up now from Elton John. It's about a song called Love of the Common People. John Hurley and Ronnie Wilkins wrote the song. It was first done by the Four Preps in 1967. It was recorded that same year by Waylon Jennings. 2 years later by John Denver, the Everly Brothers, Lynn Anderson, and it was done by Elton John at about that same time, right there in the late 60s. In later years, this song was recorded by Bruce Springsteen, Leonard Nimoy, Wanda Jackson, and in 1982, it became a huge hit for Paul Young. This is the first one that I heard. A bit of a reggae flavor and a timeless message from 1969. Here's Elton John with Love of the Common People on Vintage Rock USA.
Water in the milk from the hole in the roof where the rain came through. What can we do?
Yeah, I might still want to get back to that at some point, because that is yet another thing I can do in my basement. But right now it's getting things out there, helping my friends promote their projects, still work with the Metza show, and the internet stuff. Again, the freedom of Now You Know with Sam Hedden is that we can do an interview and put it together and have it out in the world within 48 hours.
It'd be remiss of me not to ask you, with all the bands you've filmed, all the music you've played, who would be the band you've seen that you think, wow, what's the concert you remember that just blew you out of the water and you thought, wow, those guys can play? Who would that be?
Well, I've seen David Bowie. If you're talking about the ones that I've actually filmed, we did the shoot with Los Lobos, and to see Los Lobos do their 45th anniversary at the Ordway was really, really cool. It's a hard one to. That's a hard one.
Outside of filming, then, just a concert you've been to as a music expert.
Oh, Big Audio Dynamite.
Really?
Big Audio Dynamite.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of the Clash, and Mick Jones just. The way that Big Audio Dynamite would mix pieces of audio. So they use a piece of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Oh, just since the first album. So they're one of my all-time favorite bands. I would love to have seen Slade, and I know you saw Slade.
Yes.
You bastard.
I don't often get called that on an interview, but I will take that in the spirit it's meant. Of course, how can I come from London and not love the Clash, listening to them back in the late 70s?
Saw Midnight Oil. We were lucky enough to live near First Avenue. I mean, and for me, First Avenue was 15 minutes away, so it was like, Yeah, the Midnight Oil absolutely blew me away. The Diesel and Dust tour, but Big Ed Audio Dynamite for sure. Wilco, seen them live. Yeah, there's a lot of people, but Bowie, I saw Bowie 3 times, and every time he brought it, it was just amazing.
Your love of British bands. I think the first conversation we ever had when you were setting up the cameras in the hotel room was about 60s British music, and I thought, wow, this guy knows more than he should about that. It's very rare I come across an American that knows about really obscure 1960s British music.
I've got a pretty massive collection of stuff that just goes from like say 67 to 73, and I focused on the one album, right? When everybody went into the studio, they were the next Beatles. It was going to be the greatest album ever. It was going to make them $1 million. They were just going to take off. And then for some reason it didn't happen. So there are tons of bands out there that sound great that nobody knows about. And I hope to bring that to the radio someday. I could even surprise you with a few things that I've...
Oh, I'm sure of that. Sam, I'll ask you the same question. What do you bring? What was your history in filmmaking and other areas of your life that you currently bring to Now You Know?
I actually have a background in science. My original degree was in biology with a minor organic chem. I was that kid. But I also had a background in theater. I've been doing theater most of my life, elementary school through college, and a little bit out of college as well. So I got to know a lot of people in the theater industry in Minnesota. And what's cool about that is that led into film shoots. And one day I was like, can I be on a film? I found out very quickly I'm not an actor. I'm really bad at acting, at least for film shoots. And I was like, maybe I can move this cord from here to here and I can help out with something different. And they're like, sure. And I'm like, great, I'll be a PA. So production assistant. I loved it. It was the best choice that I had made, being like, I'll help out with this part because on camera, I am the worst actor. Like, I love Now You Know because I don't have to, like, I can just be me.
You're not that bad.
Oh, it's questionable. I'm not. I have friends who are sublime. They are super talented. But me, I'm like, nope, no, thank you. I'm going to pass. But that got me on film sets, and I started doing UPM work, or line producing work. And I love doing the project management portion of it. I do a lot of project management and outreach coordination in my day job, and I love it. I love putting together the pieces. I love getting to do the research. I love getting to talk to people. It's some of my favorite stuff to do. And so with that background, I was like, I could host this show. As long as I don't have to act and I can just be me, it's all good. And most of the questions, I get someone else talking, and once they're talking, it's like perfect. I don't have to say a word the rest of the time usually. And that's the way I like it, and it works out really well. So my background in theater and project management and outreach coordination kind of compiled into me being a host.
So this has been quite the journey for you. I'm sure when you first started out in that hotel room filming at Crypticon 2 years ago, you didn't think you'd be in a place where we are now. So I'm going to ask you, what's been your favourite interview? What's been the best moment, do you think, from the last couple of years and all the series? Is there one that stands out for you, or you could choose a couple perhaps?
I'll choose a couple. Well, the first one, because I knew you would be there, and I was like, let's interview Adrian. And I was like, he's done a million interviews, he knows what he's doing, it should be super easy, and once you get talking, you don't stop talking.
You've noticed that, have you? It's very difficult for me to sit here and ask the questions, to be honest.
And so I was like, perfect. So the first interview couldn't have gone much better. But I have some favorites for different reasons. Kat.
Oh yeah,
TikTok
Kat
star.
Curtis.
Love Kat Curtis, but I also knew her back in my college days. She's a TikTok.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Of course. She has millions and millions of followers, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. And I actually knew her back when I just started college, so we're talking 15 years ago. And I was like, can I do an interview with you? Like, this is amazing where you've come from. And like, we were both in the theater program, and she's like, absolutely. I was like, yes. But Lee Ehrenberg was one of my favorites. I think I fangirled.
Pirates of the Caribbean,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
Explain
And
to our
Once Upon a
followers
Time,
What did he do? What was he in?
He was in Pirates of the Caribbean Once Upon a Time. He had a couple roles in Seinfeld. He's one of my favorite people. He's usually giving me life advice on something or another on a regular basis. And
Why was that a good interview, do you think? Was it just because he...
I fangirled. I got starstruck, but it's an actor that like I've seen in series after series and movies that I've like grew up watching, and it's like to be in like close proximity. I was like, this is the best ever.
I like that interview especially because first off, seeing him on Seinfeld, I remember seeing him on Seinfeld, and as soon as he said, what's his line?
Oh, hello, puppet.
Hello, puppet.
Yes.
As soon as he says that, he goes, that's the killer. He goes, so he goes, I'll be in a bar. He said, but as soon as that voice comes out of my mouth, everybody goes, wow, he's here, you know?
Yep.
But the really cool thing about that is he said that he learned gratitude every day. Yep. He said, here I was, he goes, I wanted to be a movie star. He goes, and then it happened. He goes, I asked for the most shallow thing in the world, and to be a movie star, and then it happened. And he said, so every day he would go out there on the Black Pearl, they called it, that was the set, and he said, I would give gratitude for everything that happened to me. He said, and the rest of the day, it didn't matter who was upset about this or what went wrong or whatever else. He was just happy to be there. And it really, that interview spoke to me, and again, that whole thing about being starstruck. It's just like, he's like, oh, this is, you know.
This is cool.
It makes me sound like a stalker because I was actually sitting in the background.
Yeah, you were there, absolutely.
I think I may have been the next interview, so I think I was patiently waiting my turn. So I will add to that, that I like the fact that he'd turn around and say, well, Johnny said this. And you have to think to yourself, hang on, that's Johnny Depp he's just referenced, but, you know, it's John said this, John said that.
When he's like, oh yeah, Tim and I go way back to our theater days. And wait, Tim Robbins? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, we had a little club. We just used to hang out, and it's just like, wow, yeah.
I think the gratitude aspect is very important. I saw an anecdote recently. I know you don't follow cricket in this country, but it is a huge worldwide sport that's played to a high level, of course, in Britain. And the captain of the England cricket team said he was taking a little mascot out onto the field, you know, to play a cricket game against Australia. And as captain, there's a lot of things going through his head, field positioning, how the day's going to go. And the little boy who was disabled, you know, looked up at him and said, why are you looking so sad? And he said, oh, I'm not sad. I'm just, you know, thinking about what's coming next. And the little boy said, but you're playing cricket for a living. And he kind of took him away, you know, and it's exactly like you said, you know, you've got the gig of acting for a living. What else matters at that point? You know, surely the arguments and the stresses of the day almost become irrelevant when you kind of frame them in that way of thinking. What's been your best interview? What were the ones that stuck out for you and why?
Katie Vernon, who plays ukulele really well and sings very well and also deals with mental health issues, was interviewed in this very basement where we are now, Studio 33. So that was really fun to be able to bring a recording artist into the house. But prior to that, we had Antonia Felix upstairs, and she is a best-selling author. She's written and sold like 12. She's got like 12 best-selling books or more than that. What was really neat about that is I never met her. I don't even know if Sam knew her, but she showed up. We drank tea, coffee. I had the table set up upstairs. I moved the living room furniture around, and I think we did a killer interview. So that
one actually got nominated for a film festival. Yes, so that was very exciting.
It's just been fun to be able to just grab the cameras, put them on our backs, and go and just do it wherever the show has taken us.
Kamikaze. Once we decided let's do them over Zoom, we're like, oh, okay, we can do this, and this, and
yeah. I ran around Crypticon just with my camera and just started to interview people, and that's when I realized I couldn't do it myself. It's a lot easier, and you get a much better reaction from the guest if you have one person interviewing and the other person shooting. If you're sitting there like this and you have a camera in their face, they're not going to give you the same honesty, the same, you know, they're not going to be as relaxed. So again, you know, thank you for
it's
that.
A partnership.
Because when we've gone in and wired, I mean, when we did Jeff Brand's thing, we went in and we were set up probably within 5 minutes. And he was amazed. And he was in a constituent meeting or something like that. Had just kicked these people out, and he was just getting reset. And we were like, "We're ready to go. Sit down. We're ready to go." So that was really neat. And then we just kind of cut everything off when COVID happened, and we decided we're not going to endanger ourselves. We're not going to endanger anyone else. And that's when you did the one with Kat Curtis.
Yes.
Via Zoom, because she was in California. And the way that one turned out, we realized we can keep these going. And I would say, on a personal level, Martin Farr.
Oh, yes.
Maybe not the most enigmatic, charismatic guy, but talk about background and talk about shows that he's worked on.
He's won
movies
about
that he's
7
worked on.
Emmys, isn't he? That guy has won a
Exactly.
lot of awards for his theatre set designs, film set designs, and his general, skills on the background, in the background of these films is quite remarkable.
I'm Sam Hedden, and we're about to do a quarantine Zoom interview with Martin Farr. Hi, Martin.
Hey, how's it going?
6 daytime Emmys. That's impressive. And then what's more impressive is nominated for 15.
15, not quite as many as Susan Lucci.
Wow.
So we did both the shows, and they both got nominated. It was the first internet show. It was before Orange is the New Black hadn't even hit. Netflix wasn't doing anything original. No online streaming service was doing original work. It's called Hunters on Amazon Prime, and it stars Al Pacino.
Wow.
Carol Kane, that was who I was thinking of.
Carol Kane, like the woman from Scrooge, who
Yes.
him in the face with a toaster.
Yeah.
What would be an experience that didn't go well? You've talked about the things that went well, the serendipity of meeting and setting up. What was an event or something that perhaps anyone who's watching who wants to try similar things, what perhaps would be your advice, or something that didn't quite pan out?
We have this really bad habit of bickering back and forth, and I think it makes a lot of people nervous before we start. Like
an old married couple.
Yeah, like we bicker, like, oh, okay, whatever, do what you're going to do. Fine, do it this way. Fine, I'll do it that way. And I think it makes a lot of people go, wait a second, what am I doing here? Why are these people interviewing me? And it's like, but that's our thing. And it somehow, I think, makes things go better. But it makes a lot of people nervous when they're like, why are they arguing? And it's like, well, we're not arguing. That's just how we talk.
Yeah, we're just working things out. And then once the cameras start rolling, in a live situation, I don't say a word. I just let her do the interview and stuff. I'm walking around and checking cameras. Sometimes you'll see me in a shot.
Well, what are your hopes for? Is this series 4, I believe? What are your hopes? What are your plans? Do you have people lined up? Do you have a sense of what you want to do with this?
We have some people. I have some people that I've talked to, and they're interested, and hopefully we'll be filming those in the next few weeks. So that would be awesome.
People are a lot more available now because of the pandemic, and I'm working on getting some new Zoom cameras, so we'll take a look and see those, But the nice thing, too, though, is those virtual backgrounds. We haven't tried one yet, but...
I've had them before.
But not on our show.
That is
You haven't.
Do you think there's been an evolution? You mentioned the equipment improving, but from Series 1 to Series 4, what's been the evolution in terms of your technical skills, or how things have improved, do you think? If you look back and looked at that first 2 or 3 interviews, what would you say has been the main evolution to now?
I think the cameras, going from handheld cameras to cameras on your computer. Like when I first started, it was like, I need backgrounds. And so like I have a bookcase for one, I've got a green background for another, and then when it's nice out, I'm outside. I can't obviously do that right now. It's been figuring out backgrounds and how to make the cameras work the right way.
Because I take care of all that if we do a live show. If we go someplace and do it, I'm taking care of all that stuff.
As the person who's the voyeur, as the cameraman, the person who's watching, how do you think things have evolved and developed over 4 series?
We've learned a lot about camera placement. We've learned a lot about the backgrounds important and the sound. You can't go wrong recording an extra soundtrack somewhere. So the cameras themselves, these smaller cameras have been scientists have worked on how to put a better microphone on them so that they're stereo, and now they record in 5.1 Dolby Stereo. That's great, but if it's too far away or if it's windy or whatever, you have a secondary sound source. You can't go wrong with that.
How would you describe, if no one's seen the show before and they're watching this for the first time, how would you describe Now You Know? What flavour of that is it? What are you aiming to do with that series?
We try to make it as visually interesting as we can. So if I have somebody, we've interviewed TV actors, and so I try to get any piece of TV or any piece of video that they have so that I can mix that in and make it more interesting than just talking heads. A lot of the Zoom interviews that you see, it's just talking heads. And so I always try to break that up as much as I can. If it's a music thing, I try to do a music video. If it, like I say, if it's TV or if it's movies or whatever, it really takes a lot of the pressure off of doing that. The other thing I can do is I can reframe the square. So in answer to what's developed probably the most, being able to match the visuals in there, the typeface that we want, and just making it interesting to watch. That's what we really want to do. The really cool thing, though, thanks to you, because you are a firm believer in podcasts, so she makes sure that I do every episode in podcast. But we have 37 podcasts out there now, and that's pretty cool. I mean, it's not close to your 300, but, we're getting there. We're chugging along.
Yep.
Well, give me a flavour of the type of people you would have on the show. You've already discussed your favourite interviews. It's all types of people from the world of literature, from art, from film and television.
Yeah, we've had theater, we've had authors, they are just, because of COVID, it's not just in Minnesota anymore. We've had an author, Danielle D. Smith from Ohio, and Kat Curtis from California. And then Martin, I think, is in New York.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we do a little bit of everything.
So where can people find you? Obviously you have 3 series all archived. You've got a 4th series about to start, which is very exciting. Where can people find you? Where are all your sites? Where can people watch these amazing interviews?
And Andy has all of our interviews on YouTube, which are great, super easy to find. If you go to our website, you can find them right on our content page.
It's on my channel, ANDVD Media. So you can search that at YouTube, but you can also just search Now You Know. Every single one of the episodes say Now You Know on them. And then our website too, which is Now You Know Studios.
Not only do you have the podcast and the archives and the radio, but I believe you're expanding into other areas as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge because with a syndicated program, you have to give them almost 30 minutes of content. And so we were putting a lot of interviews out there just when they were over, they were over. So you end up with 12 minutes here, you end up with 17 minutes there. You put those two together and then you get a full show out of it. So we've been recutting some of the stuff and putting them together as 30-minute programs. And so that's probably the direction that we're going to go next. I think there's a lot of information out there that people are ready and willing to share. And again, when it comes to, helping promote somebody's new album, that's great. And that comes back to us in certain ways too. When we interviewed Lee Ehrenberg, he then got us Chris Gauthier.
Yep.
And, and Chris has a lot of followers.
Yep.
That's what's fun, my friend. And you know about this. When you're watching to see how many people have seen your videos, have seen your links, have shared your links and that kind of stuff, we look at something and it's like, we had 700 views on that last promo. Do you realize this? And it's just like, wow. So that's been rewarding as well.
So where are you syndicated? You're on various television stations throughout Minnesota. What ones would they be?
Packed in Duluth.
Yeah, Packed in Duluth.
North Metro in the Blaine Central area.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are on
TST
Town Square Media.
It sounds very interesting. I'm looking forward to Series 4, and I'm sure you're going to find yourself interviewing many fabulous and interesting people in very strange locations all over the Midwest. I want to thank Samantha Hedden for joining me today and being such a fabulous interviewee. So thank you for that. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And also, Andy, I know you don't get a chance to be in front of the camera very often. Perhaps it's something you should try more often, but I want to thank you for talking with me today and being here.
Thank you, Adrian.
I'm Adrian Lee. This was Now You Know, and now you know Samantha Hedden and Andrew Watson. Look out for their series 4. I'm sure it'll be a fabulous series, and that will be available for you very shortly. It only remains for me to say thank you for listening and watching, and remember, be interested and interesting.
Or you can do it your way first, and then you can do it my way. And then we'll just see which is better.